It is a new look Locked On Colts podcast. With Jake out of the country, I'm joined by a fellow film nerd to break down the Colts and Broncos Thursday night tilt. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you, Colts fans, for tuning in and making us your number one listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. This is Zach Hicks, and I'm taking the lead host role for today's episode, and I'm joined by my good friend Kenan Kasinko. Gosh, I knew I was like ready for it, and I just flubbed it. Like I was so man, I knew it was happening. But at Vivo Jones 007 on Twitter. If you guys have probably seen him there on the Twitterverse, you guys have seen me with horseshoehuddle.com. We are kind of the Colts film nerds, I think, on Twitter. Obviously, I have a little bit of a bigger following than my guy here, but we were the idiots that went through this Colts and Broncos game and went through the film for it. So we're going to go into the film.
I blame you for that. You gave me an assignment to do for this time, so I'll blame you for that one.
Yes, I would 100% give you the assignment. I made you kind of watch the Colts offense while I more so focused on the Colts defense. So we're going to dive into our main takeaways from this game, along with discussing the offense in detail and the Colts defense. Before we jump into all that, though, as you guys can see, I am clean shaven up on my head. If you guys follow me on Twitter at ZachHicks2, I did make a little bet before the game saying that I would shave my head if the Colts won against the Broncos. They did. My wife went a little lower than I expected, but I think it looks all right. What do you think? You think it looks okay?
I think it looks good, but I think we do need to acknowledge that this episode is in commemoration to Zach Hicks' hair, and that it's sad to see him gone, but it's looking good, Zach. It's looking good.
Yeah, I don't know. I've actually, I got a lot of comments, and I don't know if you guys are just kissing my butt. Or anything like that. There's no real need to kiss my butt. There's nothing you gain from it. I don't hold any favor for people. So if that's what you're doing, cool. But we did have a lot of funny comments on Twitter, responding to me and respond to Locked On Colts, comparing my cut to, I think Edward Norton's character from American History X was one of my favorites. Although I don't condone that comparison because he's kind of a bad person in that movie. I do think it's funny. I had Megamind was what my wife tweeted, which was kind of insulting, but that was fun. So I'll issue a challenge to you guys. You guys are commenting here on YouTube or on Twitter. Throw out your best comparison for what my hair and my head looks like now. And the funniest one, I will give you a shout out here on the next episode. So let's see what you guys can come up with there. But we're going to jump into this Colts Broncos film. And we're going to start with our main takeaway. So what was your biggest takeaway from this game when you went back and you watched this all 22 film compared to kind of what you thought after watching the broadcast film?
Yeah, I'll take the sadistic side of it and talk about the offense. Man, it's so rough. They're just getting off schedule all the time. The offensive line is just putting them in a bind. Maybe if they're ripping off 5-6 yards of carry on first downs, things would look a bit better, but they're getting stuck into 3rd and long. And you can really see it against this Denver Broncos secondary this week, where this is not a team that you want to be in those situations against, because they had really solid coverage. And then obviously the pass protection did not hold up well in those obvious passing situations. And it was just kind of a cascade effect. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse on the offense. And somehow they hung in there and had enough bites at the apple to get, 2 extra field goals in the last 2 drives that tipped them over the top, which, that's fine. But, big picture, lots of issues if they can't get this offensive line gelling.
Yeah, Kenan, we're going to talk a little bit more about this offense and especially the offensive line when we go to our offensive segment here in segment 2. But when you were looking at this offensive line, what did you think about the last minute rotation to change around as much as they did? Personally, for me, I thought Braden Smith actually looked okay for most of the game. I didn't have many issues with Braden Smith, but just about everybody else, especially Matt Pryor at right tackle, I thought it was just a disaster.
It was awful. Like
Yeah.
some of the games earlier in the season, you could chalk up some of it just to miscommunication. Like there's a
Right.
stunt and people aren't passing players off to each other. But this game, there were some of those issues as well. But guys were just getting beat one-on-one left and right. And as much as we can say, oh, just fix the communication and things will get better, this was a matter of players were worse than the opposing players, and that's harder to overcome at the end of the day. And that's where I'm fairly pessimistic about this offensive line right now because of that factor. But overall, I think they tried to get their best 5 out there for this game, and that's even sadder if you think of it in that context.
I think that's the best way to say it. Personally, I think their best 5 again would have been Braden Smith at right tackle with Will Fries at right guard, but I guess you could call it maybe a little hindsight bias, something like that. But let's move on from the offensive line for now until we get to segment 2. Let's talk about some things that stood out positively to us, some things that we really liked. Alec Pierce, man, he's really coming along. Like I don't want to get too crazy about it right now, but like I did not feel this good about Michael Pittman Jr. during his rookie season as I feel about Alec Pierce only 5 games in. And honestly, it's really just the last 3 games. I feel really good about Alec Pierce right now.
He's a dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the offense will look better if they just take 1 or 2 deep shots to him earlier in games than they have been. They need to open some things up, and he is that guy, whether he's beating a guy deep or whether he's just beating a guy because he can outjump them and make a play above the rim. That's the kind of guy that you want to just take a chance and put the ball in his direction and hope they can come down with it. And that's a huge win for a late second-round draft pick in his rookie season to have that kind of confidence in his playmaking ability. That's awesome. And credit to Chris Ballard and the scouts there.
Yeah, definitely. He's on pace for nearly 800 yards receiving, over 50 catches, and this is with him essentially not getting any production in the first 2 games. So, I mean, the last 3 games, if you just extrapolate his last 3 games over the course of an entire season, that's a 1,200-yard season, nearly 100 catches. No touchdowns if we're going to go that way, but nobody's really scoring touchdowns in this Colts offense right now. And then one thing I want to just talk about real quick before we get to our actual segments and diving into it is this Colts defense, man. Look, I know the Broncos offense is in a really bad place. It's almost as bad as the Colts offense right now, but this Colts defense is, like you kind of said at the very beginning, is they're giving the offense so many chances to kind of fix their own mistakes throughout the course of the game. And that's why we're seeing Matt Ryan have, 3 game tying or game winning drives this season. It's because the Colts defense is continually standing up there in the second half of these games.
Yeah. Gus Bradley, I'm very, very impressed with what he's done, especially the last 3 games, mixing in coverages, making quarterbacks have to think a little bit longer. And that's creating additional opportunities for the pass rush. Pass rush struggled the first couple of weeks, but they've really been coming on a lot stronger of late. So I think all of that is starting to work together, and you're seeing some of the coverage really come into play. Stephon Gilmore has been fantastic.
So good.
And one underrated attribute is just his tackling ability too. Like even if guys are taking a 5-yard quick in against him, he's making the tackle right on the spot. Right. And he's doing a fantastic job. And he opens so much up. I know you've done a lot more film review on it with if you're running cover 3 and you can just let him be on an island on 1/3 of the field, that just opens up so much to cover other players.
Yeah, definitely. And then the one thing I want to talk about here, because I have you on the show, I have to talk about it. Dio Dangbo right now. He had a sack against the Titans, which I know it was kind of like a rollout sack, but like you mentioned on Twitter, that length allows him to make that sack. And then I think he had a half sack in this past game as well. Your boy's starting to come along, and he's going to get more snaps now with Kwity Paye out for 4 to 6 weeks or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and now he can just slide into a little bit more big end snaps rather than Leo. I think he's going to show out here. It's just he's all talent. I think you've
Yep.
said he's just a big ball of talent clay or something like that, just rely on your explosion and all of your traits right now. It's kind of like a fun young NBA player that doesn't have it all put together yet, but you can just see the traits and it's just going to pop off every now and then. But it's going to be fun to really watch him develop, and you're already seeing some payoff.
Yeah, definitely. For all you Pacers fans listening, let me see if I have some Pacers knowledge here. He's like the Colts' Jalen Smith. I think Jalen Smith's kind of one of those like young balls of clay there that's playing well for them. I don't know. You guys will have to tell me in the comments if that was a stupid comparison or not. But before we jump to segment 2 and talk about this Colts offense in detail, again, I'm shuddering just thinking about it. I want to talk to you guys about Prize Picks. Since the show is going up on Monday morning, I'm looking forward to this Monday night matchup between the Raiders and the Chiefs. Tonight, I'm particularly taking Pat Mahomes to throw for more than 280.5 passing yards and running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire to have more than 18.5 receiving yards. Those are my stacks, so make sure you guys go in there and check out your own. But how does Prize Picks work? Well, pick 2 to 5 players, and if they go score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other players. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR. You guys get it. I can just keep going on and on and on. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKED on at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. And thanks again, Colts fans, for if you guys are on YouTube, you saw that flub there. Thanks again, Colts fans, for making this podcast
I was going to say you nailed it. But
I nailed it. I nailed it. Thanks again for making Locked On Colts your first listen every day. Make sure you check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football. Plus, betting advice from the field's leading experts, Bet Online. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And I apologize for all you guys. I am the host on this one. It is new for me. Jake had to leave the country and just throw all this at me, so I am doing my best. There will be some flubs, but let's jump to this offense. Now, if we're talking about flubs, let's talk about this Colts offense in detail. Oh, yeah. I know we kind of touched on the offensive line a little bit in the opening segment, but I don't really have much optimism for this offensive line because, to me, now don't get me wrong, I don't think it's going to be looking like Thursday Night Football every single week because that's just absurd to think it's going to look that bad. Like, they're going to make some changes. But we have a fundamental issue on this offensive line right now where, nobody's playing well at all. It's everyone across. Quentin Nelson's probably your best performer right now in the year, and he looks kind of adequate. Yeah. He has some good moments. Braden Smith has been decent, but that's really all you got on this offensive line. And outside of that, the other guys have just been disasters. No matter where you're putting them, no matter who they're out there with, I don't have much optimism for this offensive line right now.
I don't either. And it's really what I was talking about earlier. It's not just communication. It's talent level not showing through. And right. I know people want to point at coaching and all of that too, but part of me is wondering years of wear and tear and nicks that guys are getting, how much of this is just what guys are now rather than, what they were in 2019. It's rough. Maybe they can shuffle the cards a little bit and obviously get Pryor out of there and that'll fix some things. But end of the day, at the very least, they need to get the running game going to some degree to take some of the pressure off of the passing situations because they can't hold up as much as they have needed to. They're always in a hole. They're always playing from behind. Teams know that they're going to pass, and it's been really, really rough.
Yeah. I do think some quick changes they can make is obviously putting Braden Smith back at right tackle. We saw just how big of a downgrade it was when he wasn't there, despite him not playing very well the first couple of weeks. And then I think Will Fries at right guard is the best pass blocking option that you're going to have. I don't even mind Bernard Ryman still riding it out at left tackle, but I do think you need to have that right side at least adequate with those two over there if you're going to play Ryman. But we talked enough about the offensive line, and I do agree with you. I don't know how much of this is on coaching at this point. I mean, if you're going to make a coaching change, it's probably just to send a message to these guys. But let's dive into Matt Ryan a little bit, talk about him, because I know I said some explosive things in the post game. That was my midnight brain being a little hyperbolic, but I do want to reiterate that I am a little. I'm going to say I'm not very impressed with Matt Ryan this year, and I think that's a very fair thing to say. His poise has not been what I expected. He's just panicking a lot back there, which I don't blame him. This offensive line is terrible. And one thing I did say afterwards is I'm not impressed by his arm strength at all. Like, I really thought it was going to be a bigger attribute than what it has been. You did call me out on this on Twitter, and when I watched the film, it wasn't as bad as what I remembered, but what are you seeing with Matt Ryan right now? What do you think he could stand to kind of get better at, if he can, with this offensive line being so bad?
Yeah, I mean, I think to some of the shot plays to Alec Pierce the last few weeks, and I see enough arm there to get shots outside the numbers, more so than Phillip Rivers. Yeah. The issue, though, and I didn't really recognize this until I'm nearly seeing 5 games worth of Matt Ryan, is just the release is not comparing him to Phillip Rivers on release is not really fair, because Phillip Rivers is unreal with his release, but it's just it's slower and that ball is hanging out there longer. And I know that Matt Ryan's thinking in the back of my head, with all the fumbles going on, that I can't afford to have the ball back here for as long as I'm keeping it back there. He also needs to load up and have a sound base to really drive the ball deeper. And with this offensive line, it's just not allowing that to happen consistently. I think there's enough arm. He just needs more time and more of a clean pocket in front of him to be able to step up into, to be able to show it off. But it's never going to be the really quick, easy, short game that Phillip Rivers brought to the table.
Well, that's good to hear, because this offensive line is never going to – no, I don't know. We don't know. They really could turn it around. It's just – I mean, they have the talent, but yeah, I don't know. But 2 quick points I want to hit on before we jump to our last segment here is the young pass catchers is one. I'm still pretty impressed by not just Alec Pierce. I think Ashton Doolin's been really, really good on third downs this year. I think Paris Campbell's having a better year than what the numbers would indicate too. Like, he is getting open. He is running good routes. It's just, when's the ball going to get to him? And then the tight ends, I think, are playing well too. But what are your thoughts on the young pass catchers so far this year?
Yeah, I think they're fine when it comes to the passing game. A lot of the times you look at the film and it might be a 2-player, like a 1-defender read, and the linebacker or the safety jumps on the underneath route, and then there's a crosser going over the middle that is the read on that play. But before Ryan can even get to that read, he's under pressure. There's a guy in his face, or he's going down. So, the receivers might look worse than it really is, but that's just because the defenses are keying on the early reads. I don't know how much of that is they're not respecting Matt Ryan's arm strength, or how much of it is they looked at the Colts offensive line on film the first few weeks of the season and said, we're going to get there. Let's not worry about it. So that's the big question. I think some of that is the reason why they moved Braden Smith to right guard this past week. They're hoping to just keep something clean in front of Matt Ryan so he can step up and he can hit Paris Campbell on that 10-yard in over the middle to pick up that key third down. But overall, I think they're fine. The one thing that I will call out, though, is the tight ends in the run game are leaving a lot to be desired. And that's really, really rough right now.
Yeah, I agree. Anything in terms of blocking right now with this team, all across the board, is putrid. And that's what's really killing everything right now. The last thing I want to touch on real quick before we jump to this last segment here is the play calling issue. Now, you and I are big film guys that also believe in analytics. So I know you and I both get really upset about 2nd and 10, run up the middle for 2 yards, or, quick screen on 1st and 20 for 2 yards, or, stuff like that. We get upset about that. But overall, when you're watching this film against the Broncos, is the play calling as big an issue as other things like the offensive line or like maybe Matt Ryan missing some things?
I mean, the play calling's maybe 2 or 3 play calls a game that you really scratch your head about. The offensive line, they had 40% of the passes were pressured, maybe more this week. So,
oh, dude, I thought it was like 70%.
It might have been. It was a lot. So, 2 or 3 play calls versus 20 pressures. I mean, it just speaks for itself. I think one thing in terms of the play calling that I hear talked about, or I see talked about on Twitter a little bit, is why not just give some extra protection to the tackles? And you know what? There were 2 perfect plays this week. There was one where it was max protect. They kept the back and the tight end in. Both of them blew the block. And
yes, I know which play you're talking about.
Ryan's under pressure. And there's another play where it's 3rd and I think 12 or something like that. They keep 2 guys in to chip and 3 guys out running the routes. And the play doesn't have a chance because there are 7 guys dropping back in coverage against 3 routes. So you can't just say you need to give some more help to the offensive line, because then you're undercutting the offense and you're taking a leg out of it, and they can't do anything with that. They have to protect to be able to move the ball.
Yep. I think we can all agree the biggest issue with this Colts offense is the offensive line. And I don't know if they're built to kind of turn it around, but guys, while I mentioned the word built there, because, I have to throw that little keyword in there, let's jump to some Built Bar Puffs. You guys are depriving yourselves of one of life's greatest joys if you have not tried Built Bar Puffs. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Yes, another one. Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it yet again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run to Built.com and snag a box for you and the whole family. It'll be the perfect treat. Or you can find a really good hiding place and just hoard them for yourself. Like all Built Bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate-covered cookie dough and a light, fluffy texture. So good. That's great. What's great about Built is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for a quick workout, a late night treat, or just grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, the fats, and the sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKEDON15. All right, let's talk about something good. This defense. I am so impressed with this defense, man. And I was talking to some coaches actually prior to the season that, the Colts were going from a predominantly too high cover 2 spot drop type defense. Now, Matt Eberflus, I don't want to talk poorly about him at all. He's a really good defensive coordinator, did mix in a lot of match concepts and a lot of man concepts into his cover 2 scheme. But for the majority of his time in Indy, guys like Zaire Franklin, Bobby Okereke, Shaquille Leonard, they were doing a lot of spot dropping, these linebackers. And Gus Bradley comes in and it's a heavy man match scheme. You are matching certain routes. You are, how you attack 3x1 sets is so different under Gus Bradley. And it only took like 3 weeks and putting Rodney McLeod back there at safety, and this defense improved drastically in everything that Gus Bradley wants them to do. They're forcing 3rd and longs. It wasn't just this week against the Broncos. It was week 3 against the Chiefs, week 4, after the first quarter against the Titans. They're forcing 3rd and longs, getting offenses where they want them, and they're just shutting down offenses on 3rd downs. I mean, since week 3, the Colts defense is only allowing offenses to convert on 27% of their 3rd downs. They held the Broncos to 2 for 15 on Thursday, where Russell Wilson had a passer rating of 28 on 3rd down. So they are locking teams down early and often and then getting them into 3rd down situations. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we just got to say Gus Bradley's pretty good. I like Gus Bradley.
He's doing great work. I mean, he's mixing things up. You talk about the cover 3 match, but he's throwing a lot of cover 1 out there. He's throwing cover 4 out there. He's throwing Tampa 2 out there. And the big thing is that he has the linebackers to do it. And I'm not sure he's had that since Seattle in his background. Zaire Franklin has been playing great ball the last few weeks. Bobby Okereke has been fantastic pretty much all year. Mm-hmm. He's one of those linebackers that can turn and he can run. I mean, Jamal Agnew, that guy on the Jags is a return man.
Yeah.
He's so damn fast. And Okereke was basically step for step with him. It was really great to see. And things like that on those deep crossers or just deep routes where the linebackers can still stay with a guy, that just makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. And to mention with the linebackers, I actually think there is room for them to improve. Like there are 2 to 3 gaffes a game still where I'm like, you missed. Like the league play to Jerry Jeudy in overtime. I think Bobby Okereke should have picked that. But he, let it run free. And then there was a couple of Zaire Franklin passed off something that he shouldn't have, stuff like that. So I think these linebackers can get better, but they're already showing so much improvement early in the year. And I think that substitution of Nick Cross for Rodney McLeod at strong safety has just done so much for this defense. It's just been phenomenal. So hats off to the linebackers, hats off to this defense on third down, and hats off to Gus Bradley. Like you mentioned, I mean, he is mixing things up. Like we analytic guys were going crazy all offseason. Like, oh, why is Gus Bradley still getting chances? He's just that single high guy in the league full of 2 high guys. And we're seeing when the Colts have offenses backed up, when they have them in third down situations, you are seeing quarters coverage. You're seeing a lot of cover one. He trusts these corners in cover 1. And we're seeing some Tampa 2, some cover 2, cover 3 match still like he likes to do. Like, he's throwing a lot, and then a lot of stunts up front too, and helping these guys get pressure. So, yeah, Gus Bradley, some
good blitzes.
Yeah, really good blitzes, and that was something I talked about a lot this offseason. Like Gus Bradley doesn't blitz much, but when he does, it's good. Like it's a good blitz. But going to kind of some individual players here, Rodney Thomas II. I know you watched a little bit of the defense in this one. I'm pretty impressed by this young kid. I do think there's some areas where he can get better, but like, I'm pretty impressed by his play so far.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he can clearly move and cover a lot of ground. That play against Jerry Jeudy that he broke up and nearly intercepted, that was fantastic. And I can't believe that ref took that other possible interception away from him too. But he's a perfect middle third back safety for this defense, and that's. Last year after having to suffer through Andrew Sendejo and what those backup safeties offered them, it's a breath of fresh air to have Rodney McLeod and Nick Cross and Rodney Thomas II back there for them.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm so happy I don't have to watch Andrew Sendejo. And honestly, I'm going to have a guest later on this week coming on the show, and we're going to do kind of a heat check on a lot of Colts young players. So I don't want to go too far into Rodney Thomas because that's a guy we're going to definitely focus on for the defensive segment. But make sure you guys check out that. I think it's going to be our Friday show. But one other thing about this defense I really want to hit on before we close out today's show is Jake and I went pretty all in on this defense after the first 2 weeks, especially after that Jaguars loss, saying, look, there are some young players playing well, but the stars on this defense are just underperforming. DeForest Buckner was not playing well. Stephon Gilmore was getting beat by Evan Ingram constantly on third downs in that game. There was Bobby Okereke wasn't playing super well at that point. Stuff like that. Guys, Yannick Ngakoue was not looking like the pass rush they traded for. But we saw this week all of those guys. They stepped up. I mean, DeForest Buckner was DeForest Buckner on Thursday. Like, he was phenomenal. Stephon Gilmore looks like a legit, elite man coverage corner. He made 2 game-saving plays. So what are your thoughts here on these star players kind of finally stepping up for this Colts defense?
Yeah, this is probably going to break some heads out there, but, when your best players play well, things tend to go pretty well for you. But yeah, it's been phenomenal. I think Stephon Gilmore has been pretty solid all year. A few little things here and there, but when DeForest Buckner is DeForest Buckner, then that changes a lot for this defense. And Ngakoue has been really strong the last couple of weeks. And Kwity Paye, luckily, it sounds like it's just a high ankle sprain. Yeah. And it'll be a month or two, and he'll be back later this year. But he's been really coming on strong as well. So I think the defensive line is still really good. The linebackers have been stepping up, and then the secondary has been stepping up as well. Everything's coming together on the defensive side of the ball. Let's just kind of cross our fingers on maybe the offense will get a little bit of that luck rubbing off on them.
Yeah. No, I love this defense, and I love this player I'm about to mention, but if Grover Stewart's your best defender, you're having issues. So I'm happy that Grover Stewart can kind of fall back down to 4th or 5th best defender. Like that, that's making me a little happier.
Yeah.
That's all we got for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed just two film nerds, breaking down some of this disgusting film. But honestly, I feel like we made it at least kind of fun. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at VivoJones007, at Zach Hicks 2, and at Locked On Colts. Also subscribe to our shows on YouTube, wherever you listen to the podcast. And thanks again, man, for coming on today's episode. You want to do any shout outs or anything like that from today's show?
No, man, just thanks a lot for having me. I've been a big fan since you've been covering the Colts, and glad to finally meet up and have a chance to chat.
I feel like we've been talking for years at this point, so it's like it doesn't even feel like this is our first time talking. But no, it was awesome to have you on. I know I've heard you on some other podcasts and stuff like that. So when Jake said he was going to be out of the country, I was like, okay, I know what my first show is going to be. So, but no, thanks again, guys, for making Locked On Colts your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.